Welcome to a powerful and deeply inspiring story that will help you improve your English listening skills while also changing how you think about success, patience, and timing in life. Today, you are going to hear the life story of Morgan Freeman, a man whose voice became one of the most trusted and recognizable voices in the world, yet whose success came later than almost anyone expected. As you listen, focus on the phrases, emotional expressions, and a storytelling a structure. This is not only language practice, this is perspective training because some lives prove that greatness is not about speed, but about endurance. Morgan Freeman was born on June 1st, 1937, in Memphis, Tennessee, during a period when America was still deeply divided by race and opportunity. His family was not wealthy, and stability was never guaranteed. His mother worked as a teacher, and his father was a barber. And because work was uncertain, the family moved often. Constant relocation can make a child feel insecure, but it can also build awareness. Morgan grew up watching people carefully, listening more than he spoke, and learning emotional signals from tone and expression. Long before he became known for his voice, he was developing this skill of observation. As a young boy, he discovered something that made him feel alive, performing. When he was 9 years old, he took part in a school play and won a small drama competition. The applause was not just noise to him, it was confirmation. He felt seen. But childhood recognition does not guarantee adult opportunity. Many early talents disappear when reality becomes difficult. What made Morgan different was not early praise, but long-term commitment. As he grew older, he continued participating in stage activities and school performances. Teachers noticed his calm presence and natural delivery. He did not try to be loud. He did not try to dominate attention. Instead, people leaned in to listen. That is a rare trait in performers, quiet authority. After high school, instead of immediately pursuing acting, he chose a completely different path and joined the United States Air Force. He believed flying fighter jets would give him purpose and direction. Sometimes we choose paths that look strong from the outside but feel empty on the inside. After several years in military service, he realized that machines did not move him. Stories did, performance did, human emotion did. Leaving the Air Force was not easy, but it was necessary. He decided to pursue acting seriously, knowing it would be uncertain and financially unstable. He moved to Los Angeles and began studying acting while working small jobs to survive. There were days when he could not see progress. There were weeks filled with rejection. Audition after audition ended with silence. Casting directors often overlooked him, not because he lacked ability, but because the industry did not yet know how to place him. This is where most dreams die, not from failure, but from repeated invisibility. But Morgan Freeman did something psychologically powerful. He separated effort from outcome. He focused on craft, not applause. He trained his voice, studied timing, practiced emotional control, and learned how to deliver lines with truth instead of performance. Years passed, then more years passed. He appeared in small theater productions and minor television roles that paid very little. At one point, he worked on an educational children's television program, which gave him steady work but not fame. Imagine being deeply skilled and completely unknown at the same time. That combination breaks many people. Society teaches us that recognition equals value, but mastery grows in private. Morgan was building something that cannot be rushed: depth. By the time he reached his 40s, he was still not a major star. Think about that carefully. 4 decades of life and still no breakthrough. Many actors peak early and disappear. Morgan had not even begun. People around him questioned his path. Some quietly assumed he had missed his chance. But he held a belief that protected him. Readiness matters more than timing. He understood that when the right role finally came, he would not be experimenting. He would be prepared. His discipline during the invisible years created emotional endurance. He learned how to stay steady without validation. That is one of the most powerful success skills any human can develop. He once explained that patience is not passive waiting. Patience is active persistence. It is continuing to sharpen your tool even when nobody is asking you to use it yet. And then, after decades of unseen work, the door finally opened. A significant film role brought him serious attention, and audiences immediately felt something different. His presence did not feel like acting, it felt like truth. His voice did not sound performed, it sounded lived. Viewers trusted him instinctively. That trust cannot be manufactured. It is earned through emotional maturity and life experience. Critics began to notice, directors began to call. The same industry that ignored him for years suddenly saw his value. People called it sudden success, but nothing about it was sudden. It was delayed recognition. There's a difference. Sudden success is luck. Delayed recognition is earned. Morgan Freeman had arrived, not early, not fast, but ready. And the roles that would make him unforgettable were still ahead. The turning point that transformed Morgan Freeman from a respected working actor into a globally recognized figure came through roles that demanded emotional gravity and moral presence. When he appeared in major dramatic films, audiences didn't just see a character, they felt guided by him. One of his most powerful breakthroughs came with a prison drama that would later be considered one of the greatest films of all time. His performance was quiet, controlled, and deeply human. He did not try to dominate scenes, he grounded them. Viewers trusted him instantly, and that trust became his signature. From that point forward, he was repeatedly cast as figures of wisdom, authority, and moral clarity. Judges, leaders, mentors, narrators, even symbolic roles representing higher understanding. But what most people don't realize is that these roles were not given to him because of his voice alone, they were given to him because of his emotional steadiness. Directors often said that when he entered a scene, everything felt more real. That kind of presence cannot be taught quickly. It is built through decades of life experience, discipline, and emotional restraint. As his career expanded, another dimension of his talent became famous: his narration. His voice became associated with truth, history, science, and reflection. Documentary filmmakers, major studios, and global productions began choosing him as a narrator because audiences felt calm and focused when he spoke. His tone carried authority without aggression and warmth without softness. This balance is extremely rare. Voice experts later analyzed his delivery and noted that he speaks slightly slower than average, with deliberate pacing and intentional pauses, which increases listener retention and emotional impact. In other words, he doesn't rush meaning, he lets meaning arrive. Even as fame grew, his lifestyle remained grounded. He did not chase celebrity culture. He did not build his identity around fame. Instead, he continued working consistently, choosing roles based on substance rather than visibility alone. He often said that acting is not pretending, it is revealing truth through controlled behavior. This philosophy kept his performances authentic even when the roles were fictional. Years later, he received the highest recognition in the film industry, an Academy Award, not as a young rising star, but as a seasoned master. This is important. His greatest recognition did not come early. It came after a lifetime of preparation. That moment sent a powerful message across generations. Late success is still success. Delayed recognition is still victory. Timing does not define value, persistence does. But his journey was not free from hardship even after fame. He experienced serious personal challenges, including a severe car accident that caused nerve damage in his arm and required a long recovery. Many assumed this would end his active career. Instead, he adapted. He continued working, continued performing, continued narrating. Adaptation is another hidden success skill, the ability to continue with modified strength instead of quitting because conditions changed. Beyond film, he became known for thoughtful reflections about humanity, equality, and responsibility. He spoke carefully in interviews, often choosing clarity over popularity. He once explained that respect is not demanded, it is demonstrated through consistent behavior over time. This principle appears again and again in his life choices. What makes his story especially powerful for listeners is not just the success, it is the timeline. He was not a teenage star. He was not a young celebrity. He was a man who built a skill for decades before global recognition arrived. That directly challenges the modern myth that the speed equals value. In reality, depth often grows slowly. His career teaches a psychological truth that applies far beyond acting. Mastery grows quietly before it becomes visible. If you are learning English, improving a skill, building a dream, or changing your life direction, his story carries a clear lesson. Progress is not always loud, and growth is not always seen immediately. Many people quit in the invisible phase, the phase where effort exists but results are not yet visible. He did not quit there. He continued refining his craft when nobody was watching. That is why, when the opportunity finally appeared, he was not lucky. He was ready. Another remarkable element of his influence is how audiences emotionally respond to his voice. Neuroscience researchers studying vocal trust patterns have explained that certain tonal structures create psychological safety in listeners. His voice sits in that rare range, low enough to feel grounded, steady enough to feel reliable, warm enough to feel human. That is why people describe his narration as comforting even when the topic is serious. Comfort plus authority equals credibility. That combination made him not just an actor, but a guide-like presence in storytelling. And that is exactly why his life story works so well for English listening learners, because clarity, pacing, and emotional tone are ideal for comprehension. You're not just hearing words, you're hearing intention. As his later years continued, he did not slow down creatively. He remained active in film, narration, and educational storytelling projects. He often supported historical documentaries and science programs, believing that knowledge should be accessible and engaging. When asked what matters most in a long career, he gave a simple answer: consistency of effort, not intensity, consistency. Small effort repeated for decades creates mastery. This idea connects directly to language learning. You do not need perfect study days, You need repeated listening days. You do not need fast progress. You need steady exposure. That is how real skill forms. His life closes with a message that is both simple and profound. Do not measure your progress by how early you succeed. Measure it by how long you continue. Some people bloom early and fade. Others grow slowly and endure. Endurance builds legacy. As you finish listening to this story, remember that improvement, whether in language, career, or personal strength, is not a race against others. It is a commitment to continue. Morgan Freeman did not rush greatness. He built it layer by layer, year by year, roll by roll, word by word. And that is why, when the world finally listened, they did not just hear a performer, they heard a lifetime of discipline speaking through a single voice. If this story helped you, listen again. Notice the phrases, absorb the rhythm, and let the language settle naturally. Real learning happens through meaningful stories, and meaningful stories happen through lives that refuse to quit.